Okay, good evening. Welcome to the RSU 5 Board of Directors meeting. It is Wednesday, March 28th, 2018. We are at the Freeport High School Library. We have everyone in attendance except Sarah right now. I haven't heard from her, so I'm guessing she'll be joining us shortly. But we're going to get started in the meantime, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so do we have a motion for consideration and approval of the minutes from the February 28th, 2018 and March 14th, 2018 as presented, barring any errors or omissions? Naomi, second. Jen? All those in favor? None opposed? Thank you. Adjustments to the agenda? None. We don't have any. Good news and recognition.
So tonight we have a lot of students we want to recognize for outstanding achievement in the visual and performing arts. And I think that we want to start with our One Act Festival Award winners under the direction of Natalie Safley. We came in third place, and then we had the following students receive individual rewards. So let's start with that.
You guys gonna walk up there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maya Andreessen. Natalie Crawford. Carter Jedry Erdvin. Jefferson Lane. That was the All Festival Cast Acting Award. And the judges' commendations go to Liam Grogan as the playwright. Callie Toothaker as the stage manager. And we have the Portland Museum of Art exhibition giving an award to McKenna Trost. I was at the art museum today and I saw it hanging with all the artwork. It was fabulous. Just have to add that. MLTI Screensaver Competition awards go to Benjamin Barry. Abigail Breyer. Sarah Lano. Nora Sewell. Caroline Stairs. Lana Stilkey. Grace Wogan. And Anna Tryon.
Go to the microphone so they can hear you. My administrators. So one thing I'd like to add on that, there are only 20 selections chosen every year, 20 art selections for the MLTI, and 11 of those from all over the state came from Freeport High School. So that's quite impressive.
So we have three more MLTI Screensaver Competition and Maine Donate Life Design Competitions awards. First, we have Jesse Minieri, third place, Maine Donate Life Design Competition. I guess these are, I'm sorry, this was miswritten. These are the Maine Donate Life Design Competition awards, so just to be clear. So also Anna Labbe got one. Labbe? Second place. And first place, Leora Doyle.
And I would just add to that those works are going to be on display at the Maine State House on Wednesday, April 11th, and these posters are created to promote being an organ donor. So congratulations to those kids.
It's always great to see what talented kids we have in our district. So congratulations to all of you guys and all of those who weren't able to join us tonight. So I think we just went through A through D. E, report from Ben.
So, as you heard, the drama season just recently wrapped up, and with that, spring sports have just started. All of the official practices have started for spring sports, and soon some of those games will be coming up. If you looked outside when you were walking in, our field is being used finally, which is pretty awesome. It took a little bit of elbow grease with some shovels, but we got some of the lacrosse players and other kids on the field, which is awesome. And speaking of the snow, we've had so many snow days. All of us are really just running around the Freeport High School with our heads cut off, trying to catch up on homework and other classes and stuff. So not a whole lot has been going on other than that, but we're looking forward to April break. So.
Get rid of April break.
Oh boy. Okay. So 7 is public comment. I just wanted to preface public comment. We've heard some feedback from folks who have spoken, folks who've watched, board members, around how our process works, and I just thought I might go over it real quick. I think out by the door where you find the paperwork, there is sort of a brochure that talks about public participation in our board meetings, but I know people don't necessarily always have the time to read through all the paperwork we leave out for them. So typically how our public comment works is we invite members of the public that live in the 3 towns or work in the district to speak. We just ask that you provide your name and the town that you live in, and you're welcome to provide us with your feedback. So sometimes it may look like we're not responding, which we aren't verbally. We don't typically engage in conversations with members at the podium because that could get long in a pretty packed agenda. So, but we don't want you to think that we don't hear you. We certainly do. I know several of us take copious notes when folks are providing feedback. So we do hear you, and we are taking into account what you're telling us. And there was a question about how we can answer questions for people if they have a question. So what we've done is Cynthia would, with the blue paper there. So when you get up and speak, if there is a question that you would like a response to, if you wouldn't mind just providing your name and an email address, and the superintendent will get back to you with the answer on that. So hopefully that'll help close that feedback loop a little bit better. Other than that, we ask folks to be brief in their comments, try to be not repeat what former people have said, if possible, but certainly feel free to, provide your support for previous speakers. Do we have an official? I think it's 2 to 3 minutes, I think, is typically what we try to keep people to for public comment, particularly when we have a large group that wants to speak, to make sure that we have time to hear from everybody. So I think that's consistent with the town councils and select boards. It's 3 minutes. So, all right. So with that, all that prep, and now nobody's going to want to speak. But Emily's on her way up.
Emily Carter, Freeport. You can cut me off. Okay. Anytime in my 2 to 3 minutes, you can cut me off. Thank you for the blue back, the sheet of paper. I think that's awesome. And so I'll try to ignore that part of what I wrote. Because that just came up, which thumbs up. Yay, that's great. First, thank you all for your time. It is important to look at things from all perspectives. I tell my kids this frequently. It's what makes us empathetic and loving. Tonight, I ask that we look at things from other perspectives. Sorry, talking about my kids makes me get choked up. I don't know why. After watching back the meeting from last week, which I was not able to attend, I was disappointed with the disjointedness of our community. I realize that there are strong feelings, which I will get to in a moment, but it does not mean that we need to be heckling, stretching the truth of what occurs in our schools, or stooping to such a low standard of how we talk to one another. I do not believe that it sets a good standard for our schools, our kids, and let us all remember that these meetings are videotaped, and this is not how I would want to be represented in our community. If somebody was looking to move here, I wouldn't want for them to see our community being so divisive. It would sadden me. Now, with this said, I understand the frustration, and trust me, I think that we could all do better. The board and Dr. Foley are probably at wit's ends with my emails. I am not even saying that my position is always right. Regardless of right or wrong, though, we should have an open-mindedness and an ability to listen and respond to one another. The lack of response and proactiveness is frustrating, so I do get that. Board, thank you again. I'll try to skim over what I had written. I appreciate the fact that you're going to try to respond to the emails, because getting up here and speaking about what you're passionate about, or emailing and not having a feedback provided back, can be frustrating. We all love our kids, we love our community, so to work together is important, and I feel like that's a great step to be able to do that. Not responding to the community only infuriates us and feeds the fire and feeling of unrest. With this said, I am grateful for all of you and the time that you devote and put into this difficult job. Skimming over that since the blue sheet now exists. At the end of the day, our teachers and principals are doing their best. They are not bribing, they are not grading for the most part, what seems to be to the best of their ability. They're grading to the best of their ability, given the clarity of the current and evolving system. I am not saying that it is right. As a parent, I do have immense frustration with the grading system. I simply do not feel that it is right to bring individual or stretched accounts into the mix, which only clouds public judgment. I appreciate the love that our teachers have for our kids, addressing the children as a whole, and our schools are doing so much more than teaching to the book or the test, which is why I love this RSU. And I thank the teachers and the principals for that. I am not asking for a kumbaya moment here. I ask for a truce. A moment where we can take a step back, put ourselves in the other side's shoes, community, board, superintendent, look at it from another perspective. Possibly we can work better on this together. Is that not what we would ask of our children? I realize that this is time where you feel like there is a march needed or a protest to be heard. And as many of us know as adults, sometimes that does not even make a difference. It is frustrating. Not listening to one another only heightens tension and divide. It should not be this way in this community. I truly feel that way. I would like to make a motion that we work better on this together. It saddened me to see that, and I have run it back in my head many times. I would appreciate it if we could do a better job.
Thanks, Emily. Okay. Oh.
Hi, Kristen Dorsey, and this actually is kind of supplemental to Emily's a little bit. So as just kind of as a co-product or byproduct of having to kind of go onto the website to dig around and look for information, I kind of have this general realization that there really is a communication problem. You know, I know there's been a lot of transition over the last few years, but when I was looking for information on the website, there's a lot of obsolete stuff on there, and it seems that there's a lot missing also. And my first suggestion actually is a very basic one, that just to keep the general population of the school, parents who have kids in the school. There's so much going on and there's so many organizations, but so half of them don't even know like the board exists and that you meet twice a month and that you have your subcommittees and all that. So I would really love to see just before you're having your regular meetings that they be announced in the daily announcements of all the schools, with an attachment of the agenda on there. Maybe just a little quick blurb and a highlight of some things, like, tonight you're talking about class size, just to kind of get people aware of the system, like the process that goes on with any decision, and just the running of the school system. So that I think would be huge. Whether or not they come to the meetings, they might zip around on the agenda and just sort of know what's going on. So the communications subcommittee, when I was looking to see, what they've been working on, they're working on a marketing brochure, and it seems like that took up a lot of time in the fall. And then so I started backtracking to kind of see, like, what did I miss and how did we get here to this point? So in January of 2017, there was the Unity and Pride survey summary was talked about, I think, at one of their meetings. But I can't find it on the website. Like, it says it was going to be posted on the website, that you reviewed and revised it into an executive summary, and I couldn't find it anywhere. Then there were two committees. Under advisory committees, the only two that are listed there are kind of obsolete. It's the building committee, and then there's one, it's like professional supervision or something, and some of the people on the committee aren't even in the district anymore. But there were two committees that I'm curious about. The professional-based steering group. It was I found it it was in a 2016 newsletter. It's a working group of 22 teachers, parents, and administrators and students that have been meeting to coordinate RSU efforts. The group has learned about the high school's framework, examined David Silvernail's district-level analysis of implementing BB in Maine, but I can't find any of their work posted anywhere, or whatever, became of that and what their input was. There was a strategic planning advisory committee, and I can't find any of their work posted either. I'm assuming it's ongoing. It was in September 27th, 2017. I don't know if that's a date I popped in here. I don't know if that's when they were formed or when I first saw it mentioned. So things like that, like the ongoing work, is really important, and it helps. I mean, it's what feeds my information. You can't just pop in and out of what's going on, every couple of months or once a year at budget time. It would really help to I know it's a lot of time, and who knows who looks at it or what they glean from it, but just having information as opposed to a marketing brochure, it would be nice to focus on the people who are in the district now and allowing them to have a place to plug in and find out what's going on. And people who are thinking of moving here, I mean, that's the first thing I would do, would be going to the school website and just looking at it. I mean, there's old stuff on there, and there's not a whole lot of new stuff. So not that would have not gotten us to this place, but perhaps at least there would have been a little more sort of accountability, and people could find out what work has been done in terms of proficiency-based and the grading system and all that. And then I'm hoping for the workshop next week that somehow the board is able to access teacher feedback. I know that's a hard thing to do. For some reason, teachers are always they don't want to come out. And it's hard for them to communicate sometimes what they really think and feel about what's happening, or have a real seat at the table. So I'm hoping that each board member and or as a group, part of the information you gather is perhaps like the minutes from team level meetings that happen at the high school, staff meetings, because some of the teachers I know have said they've been stating concerns for a long time, and not just, oh, I'm nervous about this, and things have come up at meetings at the high school anyway. So if you could, peruse some of the minutes of those meetings and kind of see if maybe they're a little more candid there.
I'm just going to let you know we're at 6.5 minutes.
Okay, sorry. So there were also, I guess, they've been interviewing, as Charlie said they would, kids at the high school, and they're audio taping those meetings, which I think is actually a great idea with students. If you get the opportunity to listen to those, as much information as you can get from all the stakeholders would be really great. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, are we good with public comment for now? I think we have another one on the agenda at the end. But, okay. Thank you very much. So, superintendent's report.
So things have been kind of busy lately. Last night, Michelle Lichtai and I went to the Durham Selectmen meeting to review the budget and answer questions there. It was a good discussion that allowed them to kind of answer questions in a smaller group. We also did that in Pownell earlier in the month, and I just want to take this moment to remind everyone that's watching the board meeting or that's in the audience that our annual budget meeting is May 23rd at Durham Community School. Work does continue with our strategic plan. That is a committee that does exist and that is working on our new strategic plan. The committee's now met several times, and we now have the draft survey questions that the committee will be finalizing at our next meeting, which is next Wednesday, April the 4th. And at that time, we'll be discussing ways to distribute and get feedback on the survey. Our plan is to gather data all spring so that we have the summer to aggregate the data. And we're kind of striving, we've set a target to have at least 1,000 people respond to this survey. We'll see what we hit, but we've got a long list of groups that we've brainstormed around that we'll be reaching out to. I sent out a letter today trying to update parents about proficiency. Sarah Gideon and I are playing phone tag, trying to connect. I'm hoping that she can give me further insight into where we stand. I learned today that the governor may be submitting a new bill around proficiency, but I don't have access to any of the content of that, but I'll be trying to connect with Sarah again tomorrow to see if she has information that I can give to the public around that. The administrative team is working hard on the presentation for proficiency and compiling the data to present to you on April the 11th at Pownell Elementary School. For parents who cannot attend, I want to remind you that our board meetings are accessible through the live streaming from the website. Our proficiency committee is meeting next on Thursday, April the 12th at 3:30 at the Freeport Middle School Library, where we're kind of going through the proficiency self-assessment that the state created. I have learned through just trying to get up to speed on everything that this was done once before, I think, with Ed McDonough, with the administrative team, but I think it's time to do it again with all of the turnover at the superintendent level. And we also feel, when we kind of talked Jen into talking into being on that committee, she's finding that she's pretty busy with the stipend committee and the ESP negotiations. So I feel like if the board would like, we do have room for another board member on that committee. So at some point tonight, if somebody wants to volunteer for that, or if you want to send me an email saying you're interested, I'd be happy to have somebody else be on that committee with Jen.
And it's not it's not like finance is the first Wednesday of the month. It's
No, it
scheduled around when
it
there's a
really
need.
kind of fluctuates. We have been meeting in the afternoons, if that just kind of helps with that. And then
Hold on, I think you might have your volunteer. Or maybe she has a question.
Oh, okay, all right.
Doing a lot of research. I might as
Might as well put it to good use, right?
That's great. All right. So Ben mentioned the spring sports are up and running. Craig tells me that we have a lot of participants in all of our sports, but I'm especially happy to report with our new track and field that he's reporting that we have 90 kids that have not only signed up, but shown up for practice, and that we have the wonderful problem of not enough uniforms. So we're working on that right now. But I also want to remind people that the grand opening is going to be May 18th at 3 o'clock, and we hope everyone will come out to support the grand opening, but also all of our 90 track and field students for their first ever home meet here in RSU 5. The boosters too have agreed to fund a 4th part-time assistant because of the numbers, so that's great. And I'm also thrilled to report that we now have a timeline for completing the art project on the back of the school. And
Forgotten all about that.
yeah, remember all that discussion, right? It's going to say Falcon Pride, and we're hoping, weather permitting, that we will have that completed by May the 10th, so it'll be done for the grand opening. So we also are planning to have students and volunteers help out with that project. So if you're really artistic and wanting to help, well, just kind of send me an email, and we'll try to work you into that.
Is that like a working board meeting that week?
We could go out there and all. That'd be great. That'd be great. And then lastly, I want to just report that Susan Fitzgerald, speech language pathologist, is retiring at the end of the school year, and we want to thank her for her years of service. And I also want to report that John Stivers, our high school teacher, is resigning at the end of the year, and he's taking the job as the Region 10 Assistant Director. So we will still have the pleasure to continue to work with him, just in a different capacity. And that concludes my report.
Yes.
Would it be inappropriate for me to say something fundraising related to the track?
Fundraising related to the track. I guess, well, it's an opportunity, right? There's additional, we're trying to finish the plaza, right?
Well, we're trying to finish the plaza by the 18th in time for the grand opening, and there are still about 30 small pavers available. And if you want one, we just need to know by Saturday. So
This Saturday.
This Saturday, end of day, there's an announcement exactly how to do that on the Facebook page, or contact me. We, not us, the Tri-Town Track and Field Project Committee.
Yes.
It's my other hat.
Right. So, still an opportunity for folks if they want to be involved in that. Just do it quickly if you want to be involved. Saturday. What's that? Did I say just do it?
Yeah.
It's like ingrained in my brain now. Well, they were the largest donor in the project. Okay, so let's see. So that was, is that also the work on the Strategic Advisory Committee?
It is.
All right, so we've done that. Administrative reports, excuse me, finance, Michelle?
Hello, it's your purple forms. I don't have a whole lot to report. There's nothing that's out of the ordinary at this point in time. We're swimming along here. We should be at 30%, 33% remaining, and we're at 39%. So Of course, that doesn't mean that something won't pop up in May, but I don't foresee anything at this point. There's nothing sitting out there that's concerning me. So on the finance side, things are going well. On the HR side, we have gone through our first rounds of using the new software that was approved. I can continue to say Sandrine just loves the software. So there was a couple of hiccups in it, and Will has worked with Sandrine continually to get it running much more smoothly, and so I think we've gotten all the knots out of the system. So thank you very much again for allowing us to buy that software. It's been a huge help. And I don't have any further things to report, so.
Anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
For Michelle? Okay. Don't go far, though. I see budget on there. Okay, unfinished business. Consideration and adoption of the superintendent's FY19 recommended budget as presented.
Okay, so last week I presented 2 options to you, and Michelle does have copies of option 1 and 2 if anybody needs another copy. Yes. So you do need a new copy, even him.
Green's most recent, right? Green's still most recent?
Yes. For the detail, that's still the one.
So we kind of tried to use Easter colors, so, you know, the spring. So, what was that?
I didn't kick anything. I did. Was it you? Sorry. Something might be unplugged under here. You think it's just that?
Well, I don't want it to do it again.
But we have to fix it, so just put it back on.
So, do you know what?
Didn't need that.
Right.
Me? Hello. Is that working? Okay. Sorry about that.
We good?
Take it.
Okay.
Take 2.
All right. So what has changed in the week since we last met was we found out that our workers' comp rate is going up, and we thought we had predicted that number well enough that we would be covered, but we didn't. So there's an increase to even budget 1 and 2 of $45,000. And so that changes everything slightly in option 1 and 2. Okay, and then what we've done since then is the administrative team met, I think that was just yesterday, and worked on your request of how could we possibly push the needle a little bit more. And we took into account 2 things around that. What would be some one-time purchases that would help move the needle? And then the other thing that we looked at was kind of equity across the district in programming. So what you have in front of you, in addition to finding out that we had 90 people sign up for track and field, Craig is looking in right now to see whether we could get the uniforms, the extra uniforms ordered and right now, and if we can do that, we'll take that from saving somewhere. But it could be, he said that sometimes it takes up to 6 weeks, and if that's going to be the case, then we'll probably wait to purchase them in next year's budget. So we've added a little bit more there for track uniforms. Then we've looked at the generator at Pownell Elementary School, because that really is impacting the learning out there when, for example, when we had to bring them into the high school this year, but even before that, they missed another whole day of school. So we're asking for the generator at the cost of $15,000. We also looked at accelerating the purchase of the sound equipment that we talked about last week, where it's the mics that the teachers wear around during class to help with instruction and to help with their voices. We also believe that Will talked about that he thinks he could accommodate and get the schedules done to use that .5 music teacher, which would, I think, primarily go in equalizing the music lessons to what Freeport Middle School has. And then lastly, the shed for the track and field gained support at the administrative team level. And so you see that on the list for the cost of $20,000. And that brings up the expenditure increase to 2.31% and puts off a tax impact of 4.08%.
Lindsay?
I'm not sure if this is a typo or what, but the pink sheet and the blue sheet both have the same number for difference on the top on the third bullet from the top, and I don't see how that could be.
That's
yeah.
very.
Sorry, that is a typo.
So which one is correct?
The,
I think that's the option 2 number.
yes,
Yeah.
I apologize. The top number, the proposed budget is correct.
Right, so the 33 million.
Okay, so we'll just
So
calculate that one.
33,058,024 minus
Okay.
32,310, 685. 747,339.
Thank you. We were getting this done today.
Yeah, I
And so,
Putting it together this
Yeah.
morning. Sorry.
Yeah.
So what's the tax impact for option 1 and option 2 now that those are changed?
So it should be
It doesn't impact that.
No, because the increase, no, I know that doesn't. This is a
Oh, different
thing.
question.
The workman's comp increase on each one, so I'm assuming that the overall tax impact has gone up slightly for option 1 and 2?
This
I
is
think,
the revised
but that
one.
is,
If you look
these
this,
are the revised.
Yeah.
So do you
option
see
one-
that at the tax
Option
impact?
one
at
was
the top?
1.49 and 3.0.
Oh, thank you. I'm just not seeing it on the sheet.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay.
So the generator, has that been priced? I mean, I look at generators and they're crazy expensive for a house. So it just surprises me that 15,000 would be one that would be sufficient to run the major systems of a school.
So this is, Dennis is out for a medical reason right now. And so, but I did, after the board meeting last week, I did ask him that, and this is what he feels comfortable with that amount.
Okay. Same with the
yeah.
shed because is this materials and we find someone to build it?
Yes, I think this is where, Region 10 had talked about that they'd be willing to build the shed.
Okay.
So so that's not like a
It's not like
hard quote, right? Because we,
Well, I'll jump in here since no one else is speaking. I would like to thank the whole administrative team for coming up with this third version. I think these are all items that are going to be beneficial to our students. So I would like to make a motion that we adopt option 3 as presented by the superintendent.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. Discussion? Kate?
I'm not in support of the amendment. I'm looking at the tax impact and trying to figure what it would be for each community. And I think historically a tax impact like that translates to something much higher in Pownell and Durham, like maybe more around 6%, and I'm not in support of that.
Michelle, do we have any numbers for each town? Could you please share them?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
You're looking at option 3, correct?
Do you have them all?
I do have them all.
Might as well share them. Are they corresponding colors with their options?
I don't think I did. Oh, you're wrong. I am wrong. I did do it. And it says
They do say the option number at the bottom.
Oh,
They do.
I
Okay.
do. Yeah, I did put that in there at least. There you go. Thank you. You're welcome.
And the colors do correspond.
They do. That's good.
I need it. It helps me a lot.
We have pink.
You already have.
We got pink. So I think this is an extra.
Do you have the blue?
I do not. All right, everybody got all three?
So could I read for the public what the impact is for each town, or would
Right,
the
we should also
superintendent
put a
like to do
couple
that? Or?
out for stuff, or do we not have, because we have one extra set here.
I have some additional.
So I'm going to respond to Kate, and based on the numbers that we see here for each town, Durham 0.93%, Freeport 3.04%, Pownell 3.83%. I believe these are numbers that our communities can embrace and vote for this budget as presented with those impacts.
I would be interested to hear Michelle talk about how if our global tax impact is 4.08 for option 3, how all 3 towns are below that.
I know.
I mean, it's great if it's true, but I'm just
It
curious. I
is-
don't know how the math works that way.
It is true, and it's because one's taking it on the total dollar figure, and then one is taking it, remember, based on what the tax impact is in each town, the mill rate of the towns, and each town rate is different too. So
Right, which is how we
that
end up
takes
with the
into-
point of what Kate said, of sometimes it goes higher in
Sometimes
one
it goes
town
higher
versus
and
another.
sometimes it goes lower.
But
So
I don't think we've
that's-
ever seen it where
I know.
usually one sort of compensates for the other.
I know, yes. And but what's happening is Pownell is definitely leveling off when it comes to tax increases because their state valuation has not been doing such huge jumps. So that's why theirs is not looking like such a huge increase as it has in the past. And I know it doesn't make sense, and I'd have to go into a lot of detail on how to, but it really has to do with each town's individual mill rate, each town's individual shared debt, their own individual debts, and then how the state valuations play out in each town.
Michelle, is there any reason Durham's is so low? Can you tell us anything about it?
Well, if you
Usually what happens.
Right. No, it is not usually what happens. But if you look at their local contribution and then their, so the required local, and then you look at the additional local, they almost negate each other. Because the additional local for what happened was the required local went up for everybody, but the additional local went down for everybody.
And that has to do with the state's
State
valuation, not the particular towns, but how the state values
That's
the
the
3
state
towns.
valuation.
And are we back to a 2-year average now of the
2-year
valuations?
average instead of a 3. That's
Okay.
correct.
So
This
they
is
went
on a
from
2-year.
1 up to 3. Now we're back to 2. Okay.
Did you mention the debt service?
And debt service has also gone down for every town.
Right. Well, Pownell doesn't have any, so.
Right.
But especially for Durham, didn't you say that
yeah,
really impacted
Durham's went down
Durham?
much larger than
No, it's not really.
No?
It's like $4,000. I think next year is the year it retires the debt, and that one should have
a much larger impact.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I apologize.
that
Yes,
next
that's
year.
true.
Okay. Other thoughts, questions? Jeremy?
Yeah, also just like to thank Becky and the administrators
Is your
and
mic on?
Mr. Oh, it is for once. Hello. For your, the work they did. It's like exactly what we asked for was, these are sort of capital intensive projects that won't add to future, giant chunks. The music teacher in Durham just makes sense to me as a fairness issue, for lack of a better word. So I really appreciate the work you guys did on that, and I definitely did support this.
This would be the fastest discussion on the budget ever if we're really ready for a vote. Do other people have comments?
Well, that would mean the administrative team did a great job.
They did.
They did work very hard and very collaboratively, and it was a great discussion. So I also want to thank them.
Okay.
I just have one additional comment, and that while I'm not opposed to the list that they came up with for option 3, I don't like the idea that we are taking the approach that when we don't come in with a high enough number, that we should go back and try to find more things to spend money on.
So,
Yeah, Candy.
I just want to echo that I support what Kate had to say. And again, all the administrators did a great job, but going back and asking them to put more and more in the budget, I don't think respects the taxpayers.
I think conceptually I agree with that as well. I do appreciate that what they came back with are not necessarily ongoing expenses. So, I mean, if these are things that we feel like we are going to need, they're not sort of ifs, they're whens. If we can sort of flatten some of those peaks and valleys a bit to try and get it done in a year where it seems that it's a reasonable thing to do. Even 3 and 4% is meaningful to the taxpayers, right? Because this is just the school budget. We also have town budgets in all 3 towns. And I know in Durham it's going to be a doozy. So, I do respect that, this isn't the last dollar that's coming out of, we're not the only one with a handout in terms of, property taxes for our communities. So I certainly appreciate the concern about making sure we keep it reasonable for our community members. But that said, I think I'm in favor of this budget.
I would like to point out too about the process and how it worked. I think we must explain that the first option that we got was based on a vote where there were almost 40 items that were talked about at a meeting, and then each administrator got only 3 votes. So it wasn't a situation where people felt that they could fully support things that they may have embraced. Each one of them had only 3 votes. So no matter how you look at that, it's going to yield a very, I would say, not skinny, but it would yield a budget that doesn't necessarily include all the things that will move the needle as much as we would like to move. So although I understand that it's not always comfortable to go back and ask for a second or a third version, if we go in such small incremental steps, it's inevitable that we will get there. So if we start with 3 votes to each administrator, I don't foresee that I myself wouldn't ask what will be the next 3 things, and possibly the next if we can afford them, because we had 40 things here and the vast majority are still not included in version 3. So I really appreciate the fact that the process was slow and it was very thoughtful, but I don't think we're just spending money for the sake of spending money. I think we've been really, really careful about how we spend the money.
So I know that it was reported at the last board meeting that it was 3 votes, but it really wasn't 3, it was 6 that each administrator had. So the wrong number was put out there.
I'm just basing it on what I heard from the
No, I know,
administrator.
no, fair enough. I just want to correct that.
Okay.
I think I'm going to be outvoted on this, so I don't think it's really worth saying much more. But so I'll just say again that when we say, or if we take a position on whether or not it's something we can afford, I don't think we're able to determine that for our taxpayers. We can't look at it like, well, we can afford it, so, because it's not our money. Of course we can afford it. If I was spending somebody else's money, then I'd say I could afford a new garage that I want to build. So I just think we shouldn't be looking through a lens of whether or not we can afford it, because a district that spends $32 million plus is kind of not able to judge at this point whether or not we can afford it. We can afford another $300,000 because it's only a small percentage of our really large budget. We're looking at things in terms of percentages that don't translate to the same percentages in our individual towns.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that everyone that sits on the board lives in the communities that we support, right? I mean, because we are all paying for it. Every person, well, I guess I can't say that because I don't know if we all own property, which could be that you live here but don't necessarily own any property that's being taxed. But presuming that folks do, I mean, it's my dollars that we're voting on, right? And so I think that's true to a point. But, we have to, it's true. We can't say what any individual household can or cannot support. But we also can't only fund to what, any individual might. You know what I mean? There has to be a balance somewhere in the middle.
I'm suggesting that we need to look more at what is requested and brought before us rather than whether or not we think we can afford more.
Okay.
But I also think that we should see a role as board members as advocating for the kids of the district. So that's the way I look at my job here. I sit here, I look at what the administrators present as their best judgment of what the kids need. And then we try to be responsible at what we include in the budget, but at the same time, I'm thinking more about the kids. All of the residents of the 3 towns will have an opportunity to vote on this budget, up or down. If they feel really strongly that they can't afford it, they can speak at the poll. They can vote. The kids don't vote. We are their voices. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm advocating for the kids, and I'm also trying to be responsible. But I am very cognizant of the fact that there will be a referendum. There will be a town hall meeting. Everyone in all the 3 towns can attend, and people will have a voice.
Jen?
I also am on the page with Candy and with Kate, and part of the reason for that is because I feel like the board doesn't come up with the budget, we just vote on the budget. And so when the budget gets presented, it gets presented as what was asked for, and we just say yes or no. So there could be backlash, is the only word I can think of, but when people see different things in the budget, it goes back to the administrators where, oh, they asked for all this stuff. Oh, they really think we need this. They really think we need this. And so I feel like we kind of put them in a difficult spot where we went back to them twice and said, give us more on your list, give us more on your list. And so now they suffer the consequence of, well, they made us put more on our list, and now it's on them that they asked for it. So that's part of my problem with it.
But there have been years when the list was much bigger than we thought was responsible, so we went back to them and say, okay, take out some. So it really depends how the process works and how you start. I mean, this year we started in a way in the reverse way that we used to. So rather than saying, please reduce, we've been saying, okay, this is good. Now you can walk one more step. What would that step look like? So it's relative to what we've done before.
Kate?
You know, I think in general, I'm pleased with the process with the way it went this year. I think we started down a path where individual board members started to request information on things that the administrators didn't even have on their list, or was definitely not even going to be part of option 3. So, I mean, it's easy to say like we're putting it in the administrator's hands, but it hasn't always been that case. There are things that come up that administrators have said they didn't need, and we've still insisted on putting it into the budget. So I don't think it's accurate to say when Valley said that she is looking at what the administrators request only.
I think, I don't know, for me it's a bit of both, because I think you know, I'm not sure any of our administrators said they didn't need something. I think their answer was, we can survive without it, right? Which is good, right? I mean, anything that is an absolute need, we want to make sure that we're covering. You know, I guess it comes down to the discretion of, do we feel like they should have to survive without it? Right? So, you know, should Pownell not have power if we lose power again for 3 days? Could they survive? Sure. Will they make it work? They will. The kids loved coming to the high school. But, I mean, is it really necessarily in the best interest of the district? I don't know. I'm torn on this process, because I didn't like when we used to get, you know, the big things, and we used to like line item things, and that was just, I don't think that was a healthy process. I feel like this process was better. But I do appreciate the concern about saying, okay, we'll add some more. I mean, I don't particularly like that model either. So I don't know if there's a perfect model, but I do appreciate that, you know, sort of each incremental step wasn't a huge one. And I think they heard us when we sort of suggested what types of things we think might fit our position this year, which next year could be different.
I guess the last thing I would just say is the sound equipment acceleration. I just not really in support of that in particular, because we had a plan in place to fund that. And so I like to look at us trying to follow our plans and not push things up or stack certain budgets because we want things sooner. If we have it laid out in a plan, I like to follow the plan.
I guess one of the other things I would say, in terms of having gone to the Durham Selectmen meeting last night, where the budget was presented and talked about, is that option 1 and 2 were presented to that town governance group. They have not seen option 3.
Can I ask what their feedback was on the first 2 options?
It was good. I felt like I think it was
a big pause. I was a little afraid there.
No, but then, you know, and then Kevin Netto said, and I did tell them, I said, I've been, you know, it's been requested that we bring back a 3rd option, and I will be presenting that tomorrow night, which is tonight. And So he did say, "Oh, does that mean it's going to come in between option 1 and option 2?"
I said, no.
And I said, "No, I think it'll be going up some."
Right.
So anyway, so in that way, they had a glimpse of it. And of course, I'm happy to go back to any of the towns that would like to hear, more about the third option. So obviously, when we went to Pownell, did we have the 2 options?
We did not.
No, I think we were still working off the January the 24th one. So, I mean, it is, as we make changes, and you remember we did this last year, there are things that come in, I'll put out there, we still have 2 big unknowns, and that's the 2 contracts that we have left to negotiate. So there's a chance that even though you adopt this budget, we have to just remember it may change slightly.
Well, the allocation would change, right? So if this is the budget that gets adopted and, something in that negotiation goes differently than we anticipated, something else could have to come out.
Right.
Let Craig know. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. The shed.
Kate.
I was wondering if Becky could tell the board how the Pownell selectmen responded to the budget that was presented to them.
Which was option 1.
Option 1.
We had a
before
great
we had
discussion.
Some of these changes.
Yeah, we had a great discussion, and I felt like it was very positive that evening. And they really appreciated us taking the time to come out and just, share with them in a smaller group setting.
Did you have a similar discussion with the town council in Freeport?
No, I offered it to all 3 towns, but if you remember, we did have the 3-town meeting, and they were satisfied with that.
Okay. Okay. Are we ready for a vote? All right. So the motion on the floor is to adopt option 3 of the budget as presented on your blue sheets. First from Valley, a second from John. All those in favor? Keep your hands up so she can count. Opposed? Okay, so that motion carries. She may have been close with her 30-minute estimate on that one.
I know.
We figured she grossly underestimated how long we would talk about that. Okay, so unfinished business B, class size policy discussion.
Michelle?
Candy.
As the policy committee chair, I'm asking to have the class size draft policy discussion go back to the policy committee for further refinement and postpone consideration of the class size policy discussion for tonight. Our policy committee met last Friday, March 23rd, to discuss an updated version that reflects compromise. In addition to Naomi and I, 3 other board members were present and contributed to the discussion, as well as the superintendent and assistant superintendent. We discussed that we only wanted to bring something forward that we felt the board as a whole could support, as this is an issue that the community cares deeply about. By the end of the committee meeting, consensus had been reached by all present about what would be presented to the board for discussion tonight. The administrative team only had the chance to review the policy committee recommendations yesterday, and there was a strong concern brought forward in one area which we have not been able to discuss as a policy committee. Additionally, we also learned this morning by email that there will be further language changes brought forward by a board member who was present at the policy committee meeting. So my concern is the board just received the revised policy this afternoon, where we thought we had consensus on Friday. We no longer have consensus, and the public has not had an opportunity to review the latest draft. Therefore, as the chair of the policy committee, I make a motion to move the discussion back to the policy committee for the reasons I just listed. And the next policy meeting is on April 6th, and then it could be placed on the board agenda for April 25th.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Valerie?
I would like to, I am the board member who by email suggested that I would make an amendment to this motion, to this draft. And the amendment that I was going to make was simply to clarify the language, to more clearly reflect the intent of the policy. So at this point, I am comfortable with the second read of this policy tonight.
Lindsay?
I have a question. Do we, does the policy affect the budget? No, we just voted on the budget, so that's moot. Like, is there anything before April 25th that's going on that we would need or want, an updated policy for? Because so much work has been done. So it's
No.
not really.
I think that's why we just like to take it back, and because we're not in a rush. It's a big policy, and it's a big impact. So.
Okay. So motion is to table it and send it back to the policy committee. All those in favor? Opposed? Oh, wait, leave your hands up. Sorry. She's counting. Thought Cynthia was a super counter there. Sorry. Opposed? Okay. So that motion carries. You're right down there. I know. But it's an important one, particularly as a new one, right? I mean, it's not a revision, it's a brand new policy, right? So. Right. I think it's one we want to get right. So let's take our time and make sure we get it right. Well, look at that. We just saved another 30 minutes.
Wow. Guess who's watching a movie tonight?
I know.
Well, let's not count our chickens.
I know. I'm sure there'll be something to talk about. Okay, here we go. So on to new business. We're looking for a motion for consideration and approval to employ a guidance counselor at the Durham Community School for the 2018-2019 school year. You guys have it as 10A on your salmon sheets in your packets.
And can I just talk a little bit about Lexi?
Please do.
She's a school counselor that we're wanting to hire for Durham Community School. She most recently has been working at Poland Community School. One of her references say that she's an intelligent, experienced, kind, empathetic role model. She also teaches yoga for kids. We feel like she's going to be a great addition, and she also lives in the district, and I'm just super excited to recommend her to the board.
Maddie, you have a question or are you making a motion?
Comment.
Can we have a motion on the floor first?
Yeah, I move that we approve.
And a second? Naomi, thank you. Comment.
Maybe she can help with some of those mindfulness practices that we were, those of us who saw the movie Angst were excited about.
Yes, for sure.
So
Any other
question? Would she start in September, or is she starting halfway through the year this year?
No, she's starting July, the first day.
Okay.
Whenever the first
her
day.
first day is, that's when she'll be there.
August or something. What day is it for new teacher orientation? 20th.
So the existing guidance counselor in Durham is retiring at the end of the year. So it's not a current open position. There's someone filling it through the end of the year.
We're trying to be more competitive in our hiring and get out before our neighboring districts are interviewing.
Great idea. We appreciate that with great candidates. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor? Oh. All those in favor? None opposed? Thank you. That's an easy count. Congratulations, Lexi. I think she's here.
There she is. Yes. Yeah. All right.
Okay, so now we are looking for consideration and approval to employ a STEM teacher at Durham Community School for the 2018-2019 school year. Similarly, this is a position that's being currently retired at the end. The current teacher is retiring. Candy, we're talking here.
You with that gavel.
I know, I brought my gavel.
So I would like to recommend Nicole Hughes for that position as our new STEM teacher for DCS. She comes to us with the master's from Harvard and is currently teaching at Troy Central School in 2nd grade. STEM is her passion, though, and her references say that she is held in the highest esteem among her former professors, administrators, parents, as well as among her peers, and we're excited to also welcome her to Durham Community School.
So, motion. John, Valley second. Any questions? All those in favor? None opposed? Thank you. Is she here? No. Oh, that's true. Yes, maybe she's watching from home. Congratulations and welcome. All right. New business C, consideration and approval on the procedural approach on possibly amending the RSU 5 cost-sharing formula. Are you speaking to that, Kate, as the finance chair, or are you?
Michelle.
Oh, Michelle. Okay. Kate just looked at me like, what?
So, I don't know if you guys remember that when Bill Stockmeyer was here, he talked about our cost-sharing formulas. He presented a whole bunch of options and different styles and methods that have been used. But what we're here for today to talk about is we have two approaches to actually, if we do change the cost-sharing formula, to approve. And one is at the school board level only, and the other one is taking it out to vote for the public to vote in the RSU. So what we're here to discuss tonight is which option you guys would like to take to approve. We do already have cost-sharing formula meetings scheduled. We have one for April 4th and one for April 12th, where we've already invited all the towns, the councilmen and the selectmen to come in. And we've already got a process that we've started, how we're going to actually detail each meeting. So, but we would like to know how you guys would like to approve it before we go through the process, because we don't want the process to sway how we vote. Does that make sense? So if we get to a part, so to explain it for Maddie, if we get to a part of the process where it's really sounding like it would be better to take it out to vote for the voters rather than the school board to do it, we would rather have had the decision ahead of time rather than making that decision later.
It's on the green sheet.
Yeah, so the green sheet in your paper is just, this is cut and pasted from our what's it called? Reorganization plan?
Yes.
Okay. So about specifically the legal language about how we could amend the cost-sharing formula. So I think as a committee, our sense was we felt the ideal scenario would be if we could go through the work as the finance committee, seeking the input of obviously other board members if they were so inclined to join us, as well as the councils and select boards from the towns, come up with a recommendation, bring it back to the board for consideration, and if I think ideally we felt it could be dealt with at the board level. But we wanted to bring that to the full board to discuss before we move forward with that plan. Valley?
I would be in favor of trying to resolve it here rather than bringing out to vote. The amount of money that we're talking about, I think, is not worth reopening wounds So we can keep it here if we're all happy voting here and comfortable facing our constituency, explaining why we kept the vote here and not sent it out. I would be in favor of that.
Okay. Jeremy.
And as I understand the policies, the quorum requirement would still be there. So if a town block decided to not appear, then it would.
Are you talking for voter approval, or are you talking board level?
Board level.
Right.
That would
Board
kick
level
it
would
to
be
referendum.
quorum. I believe that's what it states right in there. When
No,
it's
he's
talking
saying
about.
like if
sorry.
all the Freeport people didn't like it and didn't show up for the meeting, does that automatically send it to a referendum?
I don't know the answer to that. I am very sorry. I don't know because it doesn't specify in there. You're right.
I think it does.
Yeah, the other question I had is, for how long can you keep going with meetings and not resolving this issue if people don't show up? I mean, do you have, say, 3 strikes that you can try this method, and then after that, if it doesn't get resolved, it goes automatically to referendum, or what happens?
Well, I think
the board would
make the decision that it goes to referendum.
So I think that
Yeah.
you could
Meaning
vote to send
the
it
ones
to
who are present.
the ones who
Okay.
came. Right.
Right, because in that one you need a simple majority for it to go to vote. So I mean,
Right. So it doesn't have to be members of every town present. So yeah, if you feel like you don't want to vote out on the board level, I mean, you can pretty much guarantee that's going to send it to a referendum. So, all right. Any other? Lindsay looks like she's about to say something.
Well, it kind of seems like, regardless of what we say we think we want, it can kind of be both through the through the process. So, say we want to do a board vote, and then the scenario happens where you don't have a quorum, like you have an intentional non-quorum as sort of a tactic. Then it goes to, so I mean, it could end up being both of these processes.
Yes, I think yes.
Yeah.
I think,
So-
but it's possible that, if as a board we felt like this should only be decided via referendum, then we wouldn't even pursue
we
the
would go straight-
recommendation of coming to the board first. Right. I don't think anything eliminates the referendum option, but we as a board could eliminate the board option if we chose. Is that fair to say? Yeah, Maddie?
So the selectmen, all the selectmen or town councilors from all 3 towns are all involved in the run-up process?
They've been invited.
They've
we
all
don't know
been
if they'll all
invited.
show up.
We don't know who's going to show up. They've all been invited to attend. And they requested that. That was in the 3-town meeting. They requested an invitation.
And who's on this committee from?
It's the finance committee. So it's
And do we have
Kate.
representatives from all 3?
Yes, yeah. The requirement for the finance committee is it has to be someone from each town.
Okay.
Which?
Then I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. Lindsay.
Can we just repeat so the option, so if we go with the board option, the board would be able to vote whether we wanted to do nothing and keep it as is, or whether we wanted to change it in some way. If we wanted to change it in some way, the specific way that would like to be changed would be presented by the finance committee, and then we would vote on whether or not to do what the finance committee is recommending.
Correct.
And we could vote we could always vote to not do anything.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
I think what the finance committee had envisioned was we would bring a proposal to the board. So it would play out that you'd have a proposal from the finance committee and the board would vote up or down on that, and then maybe have to get further direction. So send it back to committee with the board's recommendation of their preferred method, I guess.
Right.
Or to stop.
Or not to do it at
Or,
all. No change.
We're done. Right. Maddie.
So it wouldn't be like a policy where it's just a first read, second read. Like we could go back and forth several times to make sure that we reach as much consensus as possible. hypothetically. Yes? Good.
Is there anything preventing us from continuing to?
That was my question.
I don't think so, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced.
So I thought we had decided that the work would rest with the Finance Committee.
Right.
And then that they will bring their recommendation to the board. So even if the recommendation is we recommend doing nothing, right, or, well, leaving it the same, I'm thinking there'd be a motion that night and a vote.
Right.
Yes.
So I'm trying to figure out the back and forth that people are.
So if we said, okay, we want it to be, 100% based on redheads, right? Whoever has the most redheads pays the most. That's our proposal. So that's our proposal, to which the board firmly votes that down and says, go back and try again.
Oh.
Right? I mean, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, so it wouldn't be like voting it down and saying, we're going to keep it as is, but we're not satisfied with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not anticipating or advocating that the entire board would micromanage the work of the committee because it sounds so painful. But,
but it's an important thing.
But you never know. Something could happen. A lot of redheads.
My extreme examples are super helpful.
Yeah, a lot of redheads could move to town and all of a sudden we're in trouble.
But also, couldn't we just make amendments to the recommendation, and via the amendment we would kind of send the message of which way we want to send it if we're not happy with the recommendation?
Yeah, I guess we just have to be careful of, the process would likely be then like a discussion at one meeting and a vote on the next, because if a town did want to force the referendum vote at that point, you have to give them that opportunity.
Yes, good point.
So, okay. So this actually needs a vote. You want to vote on this?
I thought that's
okay. I wasn't sure if it was just a discussion around. We have okay. Did we have the did somebody make the motion, or did we just read it?
You just read it.
I read it, so I'm looking for a motion. Naomi's making the motion, and a second from Maddie.
What's the motion?
Consideration. It's on the agenda.
You have to say which one.
Which tactic?
So I'll make a motion.
Oh, right. Consider.
I make a motion that we go via the board vote.
Yes. Yeah. Usually they write the whole motion out for us. So, Maddie, would you second her motion? Okay. Any further questions, discussion? All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. Okay. Board comments, so reports from subcommittee finance. I think there's several in here, aren't there? Ben will give you his. With your budget blues.
Okay, so there's 3 meetings here that I have to report out on. The first one is from February 28th, and in attendance were Kate Brown, John, and Michelle L., and Dr. Foley and John Semino were guests. John Semino talked about the negotiations between RAD and RSU 5 in reference to substantial completion date and items still to be finished in the spring summer. This is for the track and field, and which are the softball field and the final surfacing of the track. So those will be finished in spring summer of this year. The Finance Committee asked that the RSU be made whole by getting back the amounts of money that had been expended due to the lateness of the completion of the project, and that amount was in the neighborhood of $30,000. Flexible spending accounts. Michelle L. presented to the committee 6 options for third-party vendors to run a flexible spending account and dependent care account for RSU employees. The Finance Committee picked 2 and asked for central office to get references for each and gave permission for the central office to pick the one they felt was the best of the 2. It is planned to have these roll out with the open enrollment in May for the upcoming school year. This is something I think that we're offering because a few employees have asked about us offering these plans. Nutrition contribution, I think we've covered most of this through the budget process, but Michelle L. explained to the Finance Committee that currently school nutrition program is doing very well, and we're not recommending at this time to add additional funds from the undesignated fund balance to pay down the debt. Michelle L. stated it may take longer to pay off the debt, but it seems the program may be able to do this on its own rather than requesting local contribution money. We just covered this, cost sharing, setting dates to discuss. At this meeting, I asked about beginning the discussion of the cost sharing formula, which the board had handed to the Finance Committee to pursue. It was decided to bring it up at the Tri-Town meeting, which was held March 1st, and invite members of the individual town boards to participate. The Finance Committee, we've set a few dates for meetings in the next few months and sent out an invitation to the town boards to those meetings to help in the discussion. Okay, the March 14th meeting, in attendance were myself, John, and Michelle L. And I was like, Michelle,
I was there.
You missed a lot of the
I did
meetings
not.
here.
They just leave me off of all of it. I was clearly providing a lot of input into the process. I was at all these meetings.
Yeah.
Apparently there's only room for one Michelle on the list.
Yeah.
I should just say Michelle's.
Yeah. We had a few guests in attendance, Dr. Foley and Seth Thompson. So Seth went over the technology update, which I think that very night he then went over with all of you at a board meeting covering his budget. He gave a presentation of the next 3 years projects and costs. He spoke that all of the projects come into each budget year just as other projects are coming off the budget, making the cost budget neutral. The projects include finishing the sound amp systems K through 8, upgrade of the wireless networks throughout all schools, and renewal of MLTI for students K through 6 and teachers pre-K through 12. We talked about the RAD settlement again. Becky talked to the committee about the most recent counter offer from RAD Sports for settlement. At the previous meeting, we talked about the $30,000 in expenses that we had incurred since going past the due date of the completion of the project. RAD counter offered with the $26,000 with a completion date of the softball field of June 1st of this year. After some discussion, the Finance Committee decided $28,000 was the lowest we would go, ensuring that RSU 5 would be made whole for the extra amounts expended due to the lateness of the project. We also suggested moving the softball field completion date to June 14th because we felt that the 2 weeks RAD was allotting did not seem adequate. Cost sharing. This was, again, setting dates to discuss. We decided the very first date would just be the Finance Committee and Dr. Foley so we could set out our work plan and set up when those meetings would occur, schedule the meetings. Then all the other meetings, we would invite the members of the 3 town councils to join. The first meeting for the Finance Committee to set out those procedures was Tuesday, March 20th. And the future meetings to invite the 3 town councils will be Wednesday, March 28th and Thursday, April 12th. What we ended up doing was we didn't have the time.
April 4th, not March 28th. March 28th is today.
Yeah, we didn't. We didn't. We ended up rescheduling that to next week at the following meeting when we did our work plan. So I can't remember the reason behind that. I think it had some timing issues with when the select boards were meeting.
We had to discuss whether or not which approach we were going to do to vote. So we had originally set aside March 28th, and then we decided, because we had to ask the board first, we didn't want to have a meeting before we knew the answer.
Right.
So yes, we did pick March 28th, then we changed it to April 4th.
Right. Yep. Okay. So then the following meeting was March 20th, and this is where we just met to go over the cost sharing process and lay out the work plan. We were all in attendance at that one. And we had a few guests again. Dr. Foley and Valley were there. So this is where we laid out the work plan and decided that March 28th wasn't going to work, and we pushed that off to April 4th. We talked about the process of how to proceed with the following meetings. We included in the discussion was who would be making the decision on the decision. And that was where we decided we should bring it to the board to decide how this all would be decided, which you just voted on. I don't need to go over the two options. The Finance Committee will meet with the three towns, gathering data and ideas, and when all information is gathered, we'll report out to the school board. 2 meetings with invites to the 3 towns were set up for April 4th and April 12th from 5 to 7 p.m. in the high school library. The meeting that was going to be held March 28th was canceled due to the discussion to take place tonight with the school board. And the next meeting on April 4th will be a discussion to talk about our current cost-sharing formulas and other potential cost-sharing formulas that could be used. In the April 4th meeting, we will discuss what the April 12th meeting will involve. That's it. Next meeting, April 4th at the Freeport High School Library at 5 p.m.
Yes.
So I would like to report that RAD has accepted that proposal, our counter.
And also, one of the things we send out with the invitation to the 3 councils is the report from Bill that he provided to the board, just to give them a little bit of background prior to coming to that meeting, because I think there's probably differing levels of knowledge or about how the current cost sharing formula is done. So we sent that in. Yeah.
The way that tax impact for our most current budget split out was just like unheard of, and I just want to encourage the policy committee to all the lawyer's numbers that he used in that presentation told one story, and I just want to make sure that you're quickly adding in the current reevaluation numbers, because it's gonna, all the percentages are gonna be different. So just jump right in there with a new set of numbers. I mean, keep the other ones because it's historical, but as a board member, I'm gonna, because that was so weird, just seeing these budgets tonight.
Yeah.
How that got all, the relationships were all different.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to think of what if the state valuation numbers Bill used would have been the same ones. I feel like they would be the same ones you have, because they're not, well, I guess yours are an average, his are not.
No, the state valuation he used was from the 17-18 ED 279. The state valuations that you're seeing tonight are from the 18-19.
18-19. Okay, so there are updated numbers.
That's correct.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. Kate, any other questions for Kate on the finance?
Good work. That was a lot of work.
And may I request that the updated numbers be sent to the board too, not just the leadership from the 3 towns, but to us too. Thank you.
Okay, so policy committee. Candy.
Okay. You have a beige sheet in your folder, and we have met twice since the last Board meeting, March 2nd and March 23rd. On the 2nd, you'll see we talked about 3 policies that needed no changes: homeschooling participation in school programs, and basic instruction programs. Those stayed the same, no reviewed, no changes recommended. And the next 2, agenda format and independent educational evaluations, are on our agenda tonight, and that'll be next. And obviously we talked about class size, which we'll keep talking about. And so class size and the next 5 were all part of the discussion at our March 23rd meeting, and several of those will be coming to the board in upcoming meetings. Most of those were without changes or minor changes. The one that needs more work is the transcripts and academic achievement, because it has to do with the grading system and whatnot. So we'll have to be looking at that one some more. I think that's basically it. Cynthia, I don't know whether, or Naomi, anything else? Maddie?
When are your next meetings scheduled?
April 6th, yes.
What time?
8:30.
Thank you.
Early.
That's not early.
Well, when you're retired, it is.
Oh, I can only wait until that's early.
So April 6th at 8:30. Anything else?
So we'll move on to policies.
My voice is asleep, I'm sorry. So, as Candy just said, we have 2 policies for first read this evening. The first one is the agenda format, BEDBA. And some of the changes are due to current practice. We were not really doing it in the same order that we actually have in our policy. The first 6, if we want to just kind of chunk it, the first 6 remain the same except for B and C, which is now 2 and 3. We numbered them instead of lettered them because it's just easier to kind of go with that flow of numbering. We are in practice saying the pledge, we are in practice doing the attendance first because you announce Sarah's not here this evening. So we just flip-flop those, the B and C, which are now 2 and 3. So that stays the same up through 6. If you go to, bless you, if you go to public comments, which is letter I, in practice we've had 2, and we don't have that in our policy. So we're reflecting on the right, number 7 and number 15 to be in line with what we have been doing in practice. And let's see, any other big changes? Personnel is letter O. That's on there, and we're keeping it on there. We haven't really set that aside. Like for tonight's agenda, we didn't do any, there's not a heading of personnel, it's under new business. But in our policy, it said under personnel, so if you decide to keep that, it would just be under the heading of personnel. And I think that's pretty much it for the changes. Oh, we did, the big change is moving the policy review, which is P, which is always at the very end when sometimes we're after 10 or so. And you really need to be thoughtful in thinking and having those deeper conversations. And so we, I think there was conversation about that's one of the most important things the board does. So we put that earlier in the agenda. So that is now moved up to number 11 after the board committee reports. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell for your review.
So this is not this. I mean, tonight's agenda doesn't follow our new format, right? I mean, well, no, because right. So that's what I'm just clarifying.
Right. Well, I mean, not everything matches up, right? Like, there isn't...
Right, the unfinished business and the new business tonight or before.
Right, you're right, that's true. We did move...
Yeah.
That's true, because we have typically been moving policy up, and
right,
we moved it to the end.
So board comments, which is N, is now really called board committee reports, because that's what we've been doing.
So there's a couple of them that just changed a word or two, but everything is still accounted for.
Right.
And communications, which is M, really falls under the superintendent reports.
I think her question was, we had unfinished business and new business both before policy tonight, whereas this
Right.
new agenda would move it
Exactly.
the other way around.
Yes.
Okay. Maddie?
I guess I'm just wondering why it used to be called board comments, and by not calling it board comments, are we somehow doing away with something that we should leave room for in our agenda?
So I asked Ginny about that, and I asked her what did that mean, and she said that was the reports. That's what she thought it was, the reports. So, because we don't have the history of what that was, so when we don't have the history, we check with her.
Well, that's what it's called on here, is board comments. We have finance and policy.
Right.
The two committees. So it
On
is
our
sort of a
current
strange
agenda.
name for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wondered if there was, when this was first adopted, was there some reason to have like a blank place where if a board member felt particularly strongly about something that might not be on the agenda, that was the place where it would come in? And if we're changing it, could we potentially be doing away with something we might need one day? I don't know.
Well, I don't think this board has ever been shy about bringing up something we want to talk about.
Well, and we do have a process for putting things on the agenda.
Right.
So,
okay. So this is the first read of
First
that
read.
one. Any questions on the agenda? Oh, Valerie?
So I have two comments. One is public comment. During budget season, we have 2 spots where people come up and speak at the podium. In the past, we generally didn't have 2. We would only have 1, and we only had 2 for budget season. Does this mean that moving forward
all
we'll
year?
have 2?
I think they've
At
been
one
on
point, a couple of years ago, we would only have 1, and then that wasn't enough. And people
Right.
say, "Well, we want to speak."
I think we added it last year.
Okay.
But since we've added it, we've had 2 on every agenda since.
Okay.
So, as a board, we can decide if we only want
Right.
it during budget, but.
Okay. And then the other one, and it kind of speaks to what Maddie was saying, new business in agendas for other types of governing bodies include a time for board members to actually speak to something that they would like to speak in the future. We don't ever do that, but I'm wondering if this is something that we could at least have a conversation about. Should we allow board members a time to say, hey, in the future, I would love to have this included in an agenda, rather than have to go outside of a meeting to the chair or the superintendent to ask for something to be added to the agenda. Because if we do it as a group, then at least you have a sense of, is there interest here for that or not? If I come with an idea that's completely off the chart, then no one will support it. And then obviously it doesn't have to be in the agenda, but if someone brings up an idea that seems logical, it would be nice to have a little bit of time to plan the agendas as a group.
Yeah, I know in our August retreat, we talk about, what we want to see throughout the year, but clearly things come up between Augusts.
Yeah, it could help us be better organized. Like, I know after seeing that film on Monday, I emailed you guys and I said, hey, can we talk about that thing that came up in August? And I don't know if I'm going to remember, or either of you are going to remember, but if I had known and I could have said it tonight, then it would formally go into the notes and it would be on the agenda for August.
Right. Okay. Lindsay.
The last sentence of bedba. The order of business may be altered or items added or deleted from the agenda by a majority of board members present. Makes it sound like just by sitting here not saying anything, something is going to happen. So I think, does that mean by a vote of the majority? What is that saying?
I presume it's a vote.
It's a vote. Okay.
What scenario would just
Well,
sitting
I would
here
just
change?
advocate. Well, it doesn't say vote. It just says by a majority. Order of business may be altered by a vote of the majority of board members, or by. So I guess what I'm saying is the last sentence. Before majority, add vote of a.
What's that?
By a vote of a majority of. No wait.
Yeah.
By a majority vote. Just like add in the word vote after majority?
Do we want to specify you do that under 5 adjustments to the agenda so people are clear when that agenda can be altered?
I think there may be like a circumstance
Where you would want to get something
where,
right.
I mean, as general practice, that's the right spot in the agenda to bring something up, but like, I don't know. I wouldn't want to limit it.
Well, tabling something via a vote, I think, is different than deleting it from the agenda.
Right. Well, we altered the agenda. We didn't discuss it.
No, we didn't alter the
Order of
agenda.
business may alter. Or
We didn't, right.
Well, not.
We had a discussion.
Yep.
By a majority vote, board members present. See, I just would add vote
Vote.
after majority.
Okay.
Got it.
So these are first read.
Correct.
Any other questions on the agenda policy?
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Do we want to keep the 2 public comments in there?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I don't see how it hurts that. It takes
Great.
2.
Right. If people aren't here to talk, then we don't, I mean,
Yeah.
we just move on. Kate.
Okay, this is one of those examples where someone has mentioned that under new business, it should be an opportunity for board members to ask for something to be placed on a future agenda, and I'm not feeling like we closed the loop on that.
I'm not sure it necessarily belongs in the policy around that. I think that's more of a practice and how we function as a board. So if we agree that, you know, as part of new business, that it's sort of like a public comment for the board members in that we can just have that added as, you know, not whatever it is.
Well, I would
But wouldn't
be
it be
in
an adjustment to the
favor of
agenda?
that.
No, because it's not for this meeting, right? So
Oh.
it would be like, hey, you know, I've been
Right.
seeing a lot about such and such in the news, you know, should we be getting an update on that?
I would be in favor of that because I feel like there's no opportunity in the agenda now for board members to bring up that sort of thing, and we end up requesting in an email, and I think it should be public.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that's just, I don't know if that's necessarily adjustment to the agenda policy as much as making sure that Ginny puts it on as one of the items under new business each agenda.
But I think it would be helpful to just add it to new business and future agenda items or board comment. I mean, I'm thinking about when it's not us, like, we know how we're defining it, but a future board member might not know that that's the place that they could do that.
But if it's on every agenda,
And
right?
Ginny can't be the only person who knows everything. That's just not fair to Ginny.
Have you ever asked her? Because I know she is. She prefers it that way. Hi, Ginny. I'm going to hear about that one tomorrow. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I just don't know in terms of a policy if it belongs in the policy so much. But what would you guys want to title that such thing if it had its own number on the agenda?
Oh, I don't know if I'd give it its own number. I think I just make it a longer phrase for number 13. I don't know, it's tricky wording. Do you have something?
New business and board requests. I don't know.
Oh, that works.
Yep.
I mean, I
Kate
would
is
not
always
be opposed to
sweet and simple.
I wouldn't be opposed to saying new business and board agenda requests, but generally speaking, that new business section in agendas of organizations like ours includes that. So I don't know if it necessarily needs to be clarified, but I wouldn't be opposed to it.
And I'm not opposed, but I also just want to, you know, that is part of what the retreat's about. So as long as we all have an understanding that our agendas are pretty full, you know, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So what I have for number 13 is new business / and board agenda requests. Is that correct?
With the, we'll put it
Slash.
underneath it. Each
Yes.
one. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so that's the first. Do you want to do them together?
I just got a text from Ginny. Just popped up on my phone.
Would you like to make a board comment?
I mean, no disrespect.
Freedom of information request. What did it say?
She said to leave it under board comments. She said leave board comments on there. I'm guessing that's what she said.
Oh, that's her
So-
suggestion.
That's her
Leave
suggestion
it.
to leave it in board
To
comments.
go back to the. Just keep it as is. Instead of changing it.
I'm going to get yelled at for that too.
Unbelievable.
I can't win. I don't know why I say anything.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
So instead of striking board comments right now in the revised
Where
is
do you
not
want
on
it?
there. So she's saying put it back and put it there.
Put it where?
Business.
And it'll be a separate.
It'll be.
So it'll be
14?
separate from new business.
14?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And then
New
personnel
14.
and public,
Okay.
they all drop down.
All right. Thanks, Ginny. Did she say you're welcome? No. Okay, and
I don't know what the lag is. I'm not sure if there's a dump button over there if they don't like what we say.
So with the next policy, it's independent education evaluations, and it's now called Special Education Independent Evaluation Policy. It's the same policy. There's been updates. If you look at, so the first part, the original policy is all struck out because a lot of all that information is updated and some additional information is added. So you see a whole clean page all underscored. So this actually is now consistent with state and federal special education regulations. So basically, this is all about if there's a evaluation that a parent wants to contest or for whatever reason. This is the procedure that they could go about. It doesn't mean they would get it or not get it, but this is the general procedure that they would go through. And Bonnie's here if there's any questions that are deeper than this level. She's over here in the back.
I guess just to say, we got this from a sample policy from the Maine
MATSAC.
Association of Directors for Special
Right.
Education.
Right.
So we were using that policy.
Exactly.
Did Bonnie review this also?
Yes.
Oh, great. You just said that?
Well, kind of. That's okay.
She said she was here if we had deeper questions. All right. Any
That's
questions for Cynthia or Bonnie on that one?
Wait, hold on. Special Education Independent Evaluation Policy. Oh, I'm sorry, I did have some comments, but I'm mixed up on which ones they are.
I see you, Mary. That one right there, right?
Yeah, but that's not here.
Oh, yeah. Comments on random policies in your notebook.
Was there some set up for
Yeah, board comment.
board comment? Okay, I guess I'll save it for whenever this come up. I thought I got this from the agenda and the packet materials.
Well, we could.
Are we
attend the
reviewing
second one.
policy IHBF?
Nope.
Not today.
BAI.
What about IK?
No.
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 Oh, that's for next. Okay, sorry. Got my homework done early.
Good job.
Okay. So no questions on that second policy around the independent education evaluations. So we need a motion and a second for the first read on these. Valley and Kate, any other discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? Thank you. Okay. So now we are back to public comment again. We do still have some members of the public here, so we'll open it up if folks have anything they want to share. All right. Then I would take an motion to adjourn. Valley, Kate, all those in favor? No one ever opposed. That's not true. Last week there was. Thank you very much. So 2 weeks is our next board meeting in Pownell. We have